What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Research Tuesday where we are talking NFL Combine. And this is a conversation with a member where we just started on social media and it continued to evolve. So if this is stuff that you want to talk about, let's have the conversation. So, Michael, go ahead and take the wheel. Explain where this whole conversation started from.
Yeah, so I saw a graphic from NextGen Stats displaying the top five fastest wide receivers. And those top five fastest wide receivers were also not the five fastest 40-yard dashes. So I started looking into it, and it was actually a pretty wide range of where they ranked for the top five speeds and also where they ranked for the top five 40-yard dashes. So like Xavier Worthy, obviously number one top speed, number one 40-yard dash. Then Adonai Mitchell was second top speed, and he was third overall 40-yard dash. Jermaine Burton, third top speed, but he was 18th overall in the 40-yard dash. Brendan Rice, fourth overall top speed, 24th in the 40-yard dash. And then Xavier Leggett, I hope I'm saying that correct. He was fifth in top speed, but he was ninth overall in the 40-yard dash. And so there's just kind of like a wide variety of things happening there that just made me question some things. So I reached out to a bunch of different people on social media to try to figure out kind of what was going on. And so, yeah, that's kind of what's led to the conversation.
So what did you find when you were reaching out to people? Because I'm writing these things down so that way I can try to see it. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm a visual person.
Yeah, I got a printed out my little chart right here myself, so
Oh,
that's
nice.
why it's a little bit easier for me. Reach out to one guy. I don't know, you've probably seen him on Instagram. His name's JT Butler. He's the guy who runs like the 40-yard dash and like with like a one-hand selfie camera and runs like 4.4s with like free lap and stuff.
Oh, no,
Anyways,
never heard of
pretty
him.
pretty crazy. But I reached out to him, and he said the fastest human reaction time at the last world champion track meet was 105 milliseconds. And then I Googled the average human reaction time, and it's 273 milliseconds. And so, what's it called? At the NFL Combine, they do hand times to start and then laser times to finish.
Yep.
So if you have a guy who is on the slower scale of the reaction time, the 273 milliseconds, that could, greatly impact your final time for the 40-yard dash, essentially. It would kind of skew it a little bit. And so, if you have a guy who's a little bit quicker on the trigger, you're going to be running, quote unquote, a little bit slower since his reaction is a little more immediate versus the guy who might be a little bit slower. And so that's kind of what I have gathered is that just that initial hand time and then the what's it called, averaging all those hand times together with, I guess, the electronic system they have gives you your 40-yard dash time. But with me and everything I've been learning recently and all that stuff, usually the guys with the fastest top speed are the guys that are running the fastest within the 40-yard dashes. Granted, their 10-yard split or start isn't atrocious. And all these guys were within, 0.03 seconds of each other on their 10-yard split. So,
yeah. So my question is, do you know with this NextGen Stats, how was this figured out? Like, how did they figure out how fast somebody ran?
Here, I asked another track coach this 1 second. I've asked a lot of people. Let me look back. So it says the mile per hour data release is from Zebra Tech, from an RFD chip. And so
where are they wearing this RFD chip? Like, that's my first question is that's
no idea.
that's where it's like, so I would first of all, like, so my first thing is like saying that they ran 24, like that's my first thing is I'm calling BS that any of these next gen stats, how fast they ran. Cause that's just, I haven't seen any of the data. So like to me, if people wanted to know how fast somebody was, we'll put a freaking GPS catapult unit on somebody and have them go and run. Like, let's call it what it is. Everybody has catapult. So if they had a catapult unit on and they ran it, that to me is more reliable than I don't know. And so like for me, that would be my very first answer is I probably don't think I believe any of these 24s, 23s at all.
Yeah.
I would throw that out the window personally.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah. And then
who does so then my next question is, what are the timing systems for the 40? Like, what is it?
That's what I was trying to figure out as well. I mean, I can see it on the side of like the videos and everything, and it doesn't look like, the Vald one or whatever the glowy one is. Doesn't look like Dasher's,
Like,
the
why
blue
isn't it a
ones.
Brower? It should be a Brower timing gate, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
I'm not sure
right?
which one they do use. There's a guy with Hawkins Dynamics that I try to like talk to every now and then, and he was just at the combine, and I asked him what they did use, and he said he'd try to pay more attention to it to figure out what they are using, so then he'll get back to me.
Shoot,
But
I can just ask what's his face. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name? Drake. Yeah, I'll just text Drake right now and ask
yeah,
him.
and
Like,
so I think that might be the same guy that I was reaching out to. To be honest, I forget his name on Instagram. I know his handle.
Drake Berbert, speed to strength or
Yeah,
strength
yeah,
to
the
speed.
strength to speed. Yeah,
Yep.
that's the same guy I asked. Because like I said, it was just interesting because I have a bunch of kids that run it too, and my goal when I'm training all these kids is to give them the most accurate, realistic expectation of what they can actually run,
Uh-huh.
and so that way they're not going around saying they run, 4.3s or 4.4s or anything of that nature, with it being a lie, to the coaches. But yeah,
Yeah, so that's my next question because I'm writing it down. Like, all right, first of all, I'm essentially just getting rid of that. Like in my head, I'm getting rid of those. So Xavier ran a 4.21 and then he
yep,
had a 1.49. Adoneye went 4.34, 1.52.
yep,
Jermaine, he went
4.45,
4.45 and then a
5.3.
1.53. Brendan went. You just told me 24th. What was his
Yeah, so
time?
it was a 4.5.
4.50.
Yep,
And Brendan had a
1.55.
1.53. Oh, he had a one. Yeah, 1.55. I wrote that
1.55.
wrong.
Yep,
And then Xavier L Xavier
yep,
4.39 with a 1.54. Oh wow.
yeah,
So I mean now, like, okay, now boiling it down, Xavier, he was first. Adonier was third, and this was his. When you said first, third,
that's overall out of like I think it was
that's their
32
overall on their 40 or on their 10.
on their 40, and then for their 10, Xavier Worthy was first, Adone was eighth, Jermaine was 14th.
Here, let me write this down again. Sorry, sorry, sorry,
I
sorry,
know
sorry.
you're good.
So Xavier on his 10 was first. Adonier was what?
Eighth,
Eighth. Jermaine
14,
14. Brennan
28th,
28th, and Xavier
22nd.
22nd. And then so Xavier's 40, he was first.
Mm-hmm.
Adonier's 40, he was third.
Yep,
Jermaine was 18th. Brennan was 24th. And Xavier was ninth.
correct.
Okay, so, all right, looking at this. Xavier first, like that. I mean, so I guess that's the easy one. Like he's fast in
Yeah,
10 yards and he's fast max velocity.
yep,
Adonier, like, okay, 5'2, so he's top 10. And then he's somebody would say he's a bad accelerator because he's eighth, right? Not
right.
the best, but apparently he can make up for it and he's really great max velocity. That's what I would say for him.
Yeah,
Jermaine is pretty average on both, right? Like he's 14, like so he's not, and that's so funny too because that just shows the cluster that from 152 to 153, right? Like you're 14th. There's just so many
yeah,
people there, but he's technically 14th. So
mm-hmm.
he's middle in the pack acceleration, middle in the pack max velocity. Brennan, not great at accelerating with a 28th, not great, like 24th, right? Like so
Yeah,
you start peeling back the layers, then you see Xavier not great at accelerating, but he's really, really fast, period.
yeah,
So then that's how I would see it. And then I would say, okay, Xavier, like if we're going to throw in what I consider these to be some inflated numbers, it's like, all right, Xavier, and especially if it's that chip, because you got to consider the fact that maybe if they wore the chip and this guy, like, so let's take an example of Brennan. Brennan was bad 24, 28, but what if Brennan was still running like what if from 40 to 50 he was actually still running? Because you
yeah,
watch the combine, you
yeah,
see some guys are like decelerating, they're almost at the end zone.
yeah,
Like maybe if he ran a 40 or a 60, he might have had a better time. is what
Yeah.
I'm thinking, because of how high his speeds are, but how poor his poor, quote unquote. I mean, let's
Yeah.
all caveat this with the fact that these are all freaks running a 4.5. Anybody that
Yeah.
says a 4.5 is slow, like, so that's where it's like, maybe because the tracking unit had nothing to do with the actual 40, that's how they could register speeds that high. That would
Yeah.
be my thought process through all of this.
And the only one that was very strange to me, right? Like if the speeds on the left are completely accurate, is the Xavier Leggett one, or however you say his last name, the 23.66 top end speed, and then Jermaine Burton had the 23.72 top end speed, and then Jermaine beat him on top end speed, beat him on the 10-yard split, but then lost by in the 40-yard dash. So that's weird to me when you combine those two stats and you end up
Say
with a
that one
loser.
again.
So Jermaine Burton, 23.72 top end speed,
Yeah,
1.53 10-yard split.
yeah,
And you have Xavier Leggett, 23.66 top end
yeah,
speed, and then a
yeah,
1.54 10-yard split. But
yeah.
yet Xavier had a faster 40 than Jermaine by,
Yeah,
zero
where I mean,
point
we're
zero 0.06
talking,
seconds.
yeah,
So,
like barely. And so that's to me
yeah,
where it's like, now we're splitting hairs, and now it's like, because how different is 23.66 and 23.72? I
yeah,
mean, not that important, honestly.
yeah,
And like I said, Jermaine, if it's an RFD chip, Jermaine might have just touched that at the very end of his run, because he
right.
knew, like, he might have known he was behind and was still running really, really fast through it, versus those other guys might have been like, ah, shit, man, I'm good. This is a good rep. Like,
Yeah,
that's the only thing I could think of.
that's another thing, is that like with the data that they put out, it doesn't specify like where in the run they hit their top end speed. So like that, like you said, that guy Brendan could have hit his 23.7 at the 39-yard marker or something like that, where these other guys hit it a little bit earlier and then they're able to carry it over a little bit.
No, yeah, that would be my thought process as to how all of that happened.
But yeah, so that was just kind of a weird look for me, especially because Tony Holler is always like, guys with the fastest top end speed are running the fastest 40-yard dashes, have the fastest 10-yard splits, and it's not really the case
But
in
it's no, and
this
that's the
setup.
thing is, I mean, as what's his face said, Jeff Moyer, he's like, only Sith Lords deal in extremes. Like,
Right.
that's why you have to train both. You have to train early acceleration, and you have to train max velocity. Like,
Yeah.
you cannot neglect one. To think that you're only going to get better, like, yes, you can improve your 10-yard dash by doing max velocity work, and sure, especially if you're super weak. But if we're talking these like super fast high end people, like, I
Yeah.
just don't, I don't think that you can fully neglect, quote unquote, for anybody that's listening, I'm doing air quotes, but like, to think that somebody would not do short, heavy, resisted accelerative work with people, even if they are already good at it, like, you still need to operate from. Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about our membership site. If you find value from our podcast, you are guaranteed to find more value inside of the Strength Coach Network video library inside the membership. Doesn't matter the level coach you are, you can see all of our 170 plus lectures sorted 3 different ways. Based on the level of expertise coach you are, aspiring, established, or head, you can sort it by every sport imaginable, and you can sort it by every topic in strength and conditioning. This makes all of the content consumable, easy for you and for your staff members to be able to deep dive on any topic in strength and conditioning. Click the link down below to try the site out for 24 hours for only $1. Then your membership turns into a monthly membership where the price is less than $30 a month. For $29.99, which is less than going out to dinner by yourself, you have access to all of this content. Click the link down below and live in a position of strength. So, like, yes, you have to do your heavy resisted sprints, and yes, you have to, it's both. It's not an either or, it's yin and it's yang. And that's why, like, sorry.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is I always talk about too, where in track, usually like sports refer to acceleration as just like 10 yards, but technically accelerating is
Everything
running
until you're actually
everything.
at max velocity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything until
Yep.
you're at max velocity. And so all those little details in between definitely matter. And like you said, this is the 40-yard dash, and I just moved facilities with my own gym, and we used to do a 30-yard build into a 10-yard fly, and then
Yes.
And then at my new gym, we do a 20-yard build and do a 10-yard fly because that's all space we have.
That's all you have, and your
And the
times are probably
times
slower,
are so slower. And so it's
so
like,
much slower.
and so I'm like, I have to figure out how to add 10 more yards because like I need them to be getting up to those speeds. I was like, it's good that they're training those different areas, but I need to be adding 10 more yards somehow. So like I'm
Bro,
trying to figure out all this
I
other
just got
stuff.
the goosebumps. I just got the Holy Spirit goosebumps, and I could like, bro, but
Yeah.
you're so right.
Yeah.
And too often we get dogmatic. Where like if it's a well-known coach is like, oh, hey, we're going to do X distance of a build into this because we're still
Mhm.
hitting it. It's like, yes, you are, but there is such a difference when you give them 30 yards to build into that
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah.
Like, and
Huge.
I've seen it with Robert Tops and Robert Javier, two names that come to mind for me at Towson. These were kids that like, I mean, they're low nines, right? Like
Mhm.
nobody ever cracked an 8. We used the Brower timing system, so I never had
Mhm.
anybody crack a 9. But we had some 9.5s, 9.4s, 9.3s, and they were from
Mhm.
these guys, and they needed that long because
Yeah.
like Tops would hit that in a fly, but he might lose his acceleration work.
Yeah.
And it's like he's like you said, it's not just 10 yards as acceleration work.
Yeah.
Robert Tops was still accelerating 20, 30, 40 yards. So I
Mhm.
just clipped what you said there to make it a reel because you're right. You have to actually give them room to hit that max velocity, bro.
Yeah, I was just talking to a guy recently that's in a local school system here, and he was telling me that they do their max velocity work with the 15-yard flies into like a or 15-yard build into a 10-yard fly, and I was like, you have to make it longer. Like you have to. You can't
Yeah,
do
you're
that
doing a version of max
unless it's
velocity.
I guess it's like a lineman. Like for my lineman, it's a little bit
Yes,
shorter. I do like 20 yards or 15 yards, and they
15. Yep.
usually, um,
Your DNs, you might let them go a little bit longer,
yeah,
but I 100% agree with you. And like, yes, because that's where you're starting to get anybody that hasn't run it. And so this is part of the reason why I would agree with Tony's record, rank, and publish, but you also want to
mhm,
record your own self and do the speed work yourself. Because for me, speaking on my own experience and what I used to do with my speed work, I had my best flies
mhm,
at with a 5 yard build, a 10 yard build, a 15, a 20, a 25, a 30. So that way I could kind of Louis Simmons esque have a 1 RM for everything, right?
yeah,
And there is a difference between 95% and everything else. Like I
yeah,
could routinely hit 90% of my
mm,
PR, but there's such a difference between even 90 and 95%. And Daycant's talked about that on the show before. And like, so that's why you have to actually let them express it
yeah,
because my best, 20 yard build or 15 yard build into a 10 yard fly was like barely 90% of my 30 yard. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, so that's why when I first moved over to the new gym, I have all the data on myself as well, and so I ran one at the new facility, and it was like a one like a 1016 or something like that, 10-yard fly, and my PR at the old facility was like a 0.923 or something like that, right? And so I went back over to the old facility in the same day, and I was running 0.93, 0.94. So I was like, okay, it for sure is just the difference. It's not just a bad day. And so it was pretty crazy to see that, just like that, those 10 yards, extra 10 yards, which doesn't seem like a lot,
No, it doesn't,
makes
especially
a
to the lay, right?
huge difference. So for sure.
1,000%. I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about on this? Cause this was awesome to be able to do live. Like, I feel like, for us, I feel like we were just freestyling right there. I was like, hey, let's
Yeah.
just come on. And like, that was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, let me see here.
I mean, this isn't the only time we're ever going to talk. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
on this topic of the combine, like, was I able to answer any questions you had about it or what?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, I guess the last question that remains kind of a mystery is this chip they used or whatever, like
Right?
just the exact thing they use. And like I said, this was a guy that I follow who he's a good track coach as well and all this stuff. And so I kind of talked to him because he posts a lot about the combine and that was his take on it. So it could be completely wrong, but I just kind of, poked at a couple of people that I trusted with their knowledge about stuff. And that's kind of everything that I gathered from it. Um, but that was like kind of the only thing I noticed. The other only other thing I did notice, and I tell all my kids this too, right? And I have a running back at my gym who he's in 10th grade. He just benched like 340 pounds. Like the dude's a freak of nature. But like
Yeah.
he always says that his game speed is faster than his
I've heard, I mean, I
40,
believe in that.
right?
Desmond King and Shane Simpson are two examples of it that I've seen personally.
And so there was a guy, I forget his name. I just read an article about it. There's a guy this past combine who had a really, is either this combine or the
Blake
previous
Corum,
one.
the running back, was that the one?
No, it was a receiver. It was either
Okay.
last year's combine or this year. I think it was last year. But he ran like a 4.61 40, right? It was like slow, quote unquote.
Cooper
Um,
Cup, right?
n-
Cooper Cup with what he
let
did.
me let me
Jerry
see
Rice.
here. Let me see here. But anyways, so he ran like a 4.61, and then he had the fastest top end speed during the wide receiver gauntlet drill, right?
Yep.
So 4.6, really slow 40. You put him out there to go run his routes and actually catch, footballs. He was the fastest one out there. So I think there is a drastic difference between 40-yard dash time and actual game speed. And this kid, he's fast, straight line speed too. Like he's really fast. Like he ran like a
4.6 is fast. I'm sorry,
yeah,
folks. 4.6 is fast.
yeah, and then you go out and put him on the wide receiver routes, and he's beating the guys that were running the 4.4s, 4.3s, and top end speed. So I think there is a big
And I want to
difference.
caveat what you said with so the Blake Corum thing was Blake Corum did his 40 and he was slower than other people. But the minute they did the overlay of Blake Corum doing the same exact drill as people that ran the drill faster,
Hmm.
and he was he was faster doing running back stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, at what point can we, like, I love the fact that, hey, I mean, obviously Hawkin Dynamic is a supporter and a sponsor of the show, so shout out to Hawkin Dynamic, because I had them at Towson, we have
Yep.
them at Goldfinch, they're portable, I think they're the best.
Yep.
And the fact that they're now at the combine, like, if we can eventually get rid of the Vertec and just switch everything over and utilize this, and let's get
Yeah.
rid of all this other trash, and let's utilize the track that has a force plate in it that they're using over in Japan, like, we can
Yeah.
do it, it can be done the right way.
Hmm.
Like, let's just cut out all of that.
Yeah, and like it's more like I say the 40-yard dash these days because, like you said, I read an article that said they went to a full electronic 40-yard dash like 2 or 3 years ago, and they ended up actually like never releasing that data because it was so much slower than previous year's combines. I'll have to figure out where that is and I can send it to you later. But I think the 40-yard dash and like the bench press, like it's just like tradition at this point, and so it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see the numbers, and so I feel like to have them go into a fully automated force track and all that stuff, like it would just crush some souls with like the numbers that are going to pop
Correct.
up.
And I think that's what they're doing
And
right now.
it'll
I
be
think,
tough.
yeah,
They would have to do like all new combine records. Like everything prior
a
to that
hundred
would
percent.
have to be
And they
washed.
just have to be okay with that.
Yeah. And
Like,
that's
you know what I
that's
mean?
at
Like,
least what
and they can, what they should start doing now is they should start doing both. Like, do your Vertec on Hawkin Dynamic things.
mhm.
Do your timed sprints with a hand, like, do everything else but on it, so you can start to correlate and say, like, okay, this Vertex, like, and you're just simultaneously doing it. It's the same thing that I did with my PhD. I had I had the G flight outside of the force plate, and I was simultaneously collecting. And that's all you do, is you just simultaneously collect, and then you're like, okay, hey, all, like, based off of this, what's the kind of regression equation to say, all right, these vertical jumps that gave a 39, well, on the Hawkin, it produced a 32. Okay, so if
Yeah.
somebody's getting a 32, we could be able to say that that equates to a 39, and
Yeah.
that's how they could start to do it. But nobody in the NFL is listening to slap dicks like us.
So I tried to oh man, this was when I think this was when Kier, I think, was still with Strength Coach Network. And I posted a thing in the forums, and it was about trying to figure out if there's like a relation between like a banded tendo unit jump and vertical jump, right? So like hooking the tendo unit to your belt, jumping as high as you can, and if that output it gave you would correlate to a certain vertical jump height. And I found some sheet that it ended up being kind of accurate, but not really. But like that was the closest thing I could try to figure out to make it as accurate possible with some of the stuff that I had laying around, besides like the jump mat. So
Yeah, man, this it's all, we have to be willing to evolve and understand that it just can't. But, like, I mean, shoot, why they went from running on AstroTurf and understanding that those records were skewed, like, it should be an
mhm.
easy transition, no?
Yeah, I mean it should be, but like I, I don't know. I think it would just, like I said, hurt people's feelings when they figured out that the times that were being listed years prior aren't really the actual times or the most legitimate times per se. But it also, like it says, it skews everything downstream too, because then you have all these kids in high school thinking they need to be running 4.3s, 4.4s, and when I take them out, like I try
That's
to be as
because everybody's just liars, right? They're
yeah.
the same people saying that they've got 500-pound squatters when it's like you're
Oh
doing a
yeah.
quarter squat or you know what I mean? Like it's
Oh
just
yeah. I mean, I tell every single kid that comes to my gym, they come in and they say, "Hey, I benched 315 at school today." And I said, "Okay, like let's see it in 2 days from now or 3 days from now. Do it in my gym." And until like I spot it and physically see it with my own eyes, like
hmm.
I don't believe it at all. But it just, like I said, it just affects people, like all these kids, like idea of what level they need to be at in order to excel in college and all that stuff. Because I mean, like, if you look at like the top wide receivers that are in the league, a lot of them have quote unquote slow 40-yard dashes, like 4.6s, 4.5s, but they're the best receivers in the leagues. Like they're not
And
all.
they stop training a 40-yard dash once they're in the league.
Yeah, exactly. That's another big thing is like, it's I
I
use
love I love what Bobby Stroop said about Harrison and how he wasn't going to do the combine so he could just focus on training. Like that was dope.
yeah, that um like that's a to me it's I used to do CrossFit 8 or 9 years ago, and I had a coach that told me strength is the price of admission, being like you can have it the best engine in the world, but if you can't lift this certain number, you'll never make it. And that's kind of how I view it as like the 40-yard dash and the vertical as well. Like kids will go to these camps, and if they don't produce those good numbers right off the gate, they just get like separated into these two groups of like not even going to look at them and going to look at them just based off those couple numbers. And so I kind of view it as like those numbers, unless you're just an absolute freak at your sport and are well known, are just going to get you the looks to show off what you can actually do in a game.
Yeah, no, there's I think here's the one that said it. There's barriers to entry. It's like, look, you're not going to be a receiver in the NFL with a 5.0 40, but
Yeah, no.
okay, if the average is a 4.6, that
Hmm.
doesn't mean you're world class and you're an all pro at 4.0. Because I saw
Yeah,
Kier put something in our group chat where he was like, John Ross had the prior record. He's like, John Ross's career receiving yards is like 1,000.
yeah.
Like,
It
you know what
was.
I mean? Like, yay the combine.
Hmm.
And it's yeah, man. It's very very simple. It starts it, but I mean, it ain't like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least they've added in a couple other drills throughout the year, like the L drill or whatever it is, or the 20-yard shuttle. But even the top performers, so I was trying to get more metrics to compare like where they fell in all these other tests, but they didn't even like these top five guys didn't even do the three-cone shuttle or the 20 cone shuttle. They just did their 40, did their jump, and we're like, all right, peace out, I'm done. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I need to go to the gym to go train these athletes, but
Nice. Yeah, I'm about to have to go myself.
let's have a full cheeky midweeky later on.
Sure.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome talking with you, Michael.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was good talking to you as well. Have a good day.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about our newest sponsor, Hawkin Dynamics. Hawkin Dynamics builds and designs software and hardware for coaches, athletic trainers, sports scientists, and everybody in the high performance department. Most notably, their use of their force plates with the ease of transportation and ease of use. Not only did I use them when I was at Towson, but I've used them when I've moved back here to Iowa with Tucker at Goldfinch. So, check out Hawkin Dynamics in the link down below. Now let's get back to the show. What's up, strength coaches? Want to take a quick break from the show to talk to you about our sponsor, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is your one-stop shop for online training platform needs as a coach. With TeamBuildr, you're going to be able to program for your athletes whether they're in person or remote. Using TeamBuildr, not only will you be able to program for your athletes, but there are special features such as the leaderboard and locking training with wellness questionnaires. With the leaderboard, you can have an exercise performed that day, whether it be a lift, a sprint, or a jump, and scores can be updated in real time and projected on a TV in the training. Wellness questionnaires can be used at the beginning of training, and your athletes will have to fill them out prior to being able to train. This ensures that as a coach, you're being able to collect quality data before the athletes train. So, if you're interested in TeamBuildr, click the link down below and find out more information. Let's get back to the show.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.